All right, everyone. Good evening. Daming ganang sa Pilipinas. Of course, today was a very special day. Ang daming mga developments na nangyari, including obviously, ito na, after years and years of persecution, ito na, officially clear of all charges na si former Senator Laila de Lima. Pag-usapan natin yan. But before that, of course, we want to also talk about yung nangyari over the weekend and of course throughout the week dyan naman sa West Philippine Sea. And we have our special guest. Ito na, parang ano na rin, itong guest natin, medyo jack of all trades na rin. Former Associate Justice Carpio, of course, ng Justice ng Bayan. Thank you very much, Justice Carpio, for joining us.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you to our listeners.
Sorry, Justice, ginagawa rin kitang Ronald. Like, if every week wala kayong dalawa, may kulang talaga Justice. Kumbaga, kailangan natin ng weekly dose. Diba? Parang, so, thank you so much, Justice, for making time. I know this was on a very short notice and medyo late tayo nagsimula. Medyo kasalanan ko rin yan for teacher duty. Sorry, mga. Justice, before we go to Senator Leila de Lima's successful case of essentially vindication and all of that. And I want to also ask you a little bit also the state of the opposition, the real opposition. Hindi yung naging opposition dahil hindi lang binigyan ng position or nawala ng position, no? Iba na yung mga yan, yung mga taga-Davao mong kaibigan, Justice. But before we go there, let's talk about West Philippine Sea. So, Justice, of course, last week we had some discussions about nangyari sa Ayungin, nangyari sa West Philippine Sea. But over the weekend, medyo nagkaroon ng, I don't know, misunderstanding, miscommunication. There was a lot of disappointment, especially itong, some would say, hastily organized press conference by Executive Secretary Bersamin, kung saan medyo nalito ang tao na parang, okay, I get it if the argument, it doesn't meet the threshold of armed attack. Medyo obvious naman sa mga tao yan. Pero yung ibang phraseology na ginamit nila, for instance, na parang ano lang yan, it's just an misunderstanding lang yung ginawa ng China sa like, I'm not sure that was a misunderstanding or ano lang yun. Hindi naman hanash yun I mean, that almost got ugly, right? I mean, so, Justice, what is your understanding? Oh, of course, without spilling beans and betraying confidentiality, anong nangyari? Ba't parang medyo magulo yung communication coming out of the government?
Well, I think they have to coordinate. First, let me give my views on the statement of the Executive Secretary that tatlo yun dalawa, that it was not an armed attack. Well, I agree with that because no firearms were used. And in modern parlance, if you say armed attack, you're thinking really of firearms. And there's also the principle of proportionality. No? If they use only machetes, pickaxes, or bladed weapons, the rule of proportionality requires you to use similar weapons. In other words, don't use firearms, but use pickaxes or spears, no, or bladed weapons. So that's the rule. It's not only that if you are subjected to an attack and you can exercise self-defense, there is still the rule of proportionality. You cannot just use an atomic bomb just because one single shot was fired at you. That's basically the rule of proportionality. Now, the other one is the Executive Secretary said that it was a misunderstanding or an accident. Well, I do not agree with that because we all know that we always send our resupply missions. There's a rotation of the soldiers there, and the Chinese always block us. So that's a ritual already. It cannot be a misunderstanding because they always block us. And if they see us there,
yeah, it's an institutionalized practice.
Yeah, so it was not a misunderstanding, and neither was it an accident because everybody was expecting the Chinese to stop us if they see us, no? So that one, well, the Chinese were prepared because they had bladed weapons. Because they knew that our soldiers were under instruction not to use firearms, and they were also under instruction not to use firearms. But of course, bladed weapon is not a firearm, so they used bladed weapons. No? So doon tayo nadihado because we were not prepared for that. So well, that's a lesson learned. We next time we carry also bladed weapons. No, it will not be considered an armed attack because you don't use firearms.
Right. And obviously,
Just
that was
like
the
in the
context.
Himalayas.
Yeah,
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 just like in the Himalayas, the Indians and the
exactly.
Chinese, they just carry stones or sticks or pipes, no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know kung Kung Fu Panda or Bollywood nangyari, but I think the video, you can watch it online. Yung nangyaring, nirelease yata ng Indian side eh. The videos I saw are from the side of India na sumusugod yung mga Chinese at nagsasalpukan yung dalawang side. But, they don't use any weapons. Pero lahat, ano yan, free for all mixed martial arts. So obviously, this is not the first time. So India nga, it's a nuclear power, right? Ginaganon ng China. So that means that this is not the first time this is being done to anyone else. But Justice, dun sa Indian case, before I move forward with this issue of MDT and gray zone, dun sa Indian case, pag titingnan mo yung mga videos, and base sa reports na nakita ko, for instance, on Wall Street Journal and New York Times, because they also interviewed me before when this happened, sa Ladakh area and all, medyo proportional yung number ng Indian troops at saka yung mga Chinese troops eh. Medyo marami-rami rin yung mga Indians, medyo marami-rami rin yung mga Chinese. So there was some sort of balance of forces. So kahit ano sila, Kung Fu Panda or Bollywood fight sila dyan, medyo patas yung nangyari. Ito parang 8 yung fast boats nang ginamit ng China, tapos parang 2 lang yung sa atin, medyo overwhelming yung forces. So I think
Yes,
something went wrong there, yeah.
yeah, they had more fast boats and they had more personnel. Uh, we should have anticipated that. Mabagal talaga yung mga boats natin, nahabol eh. At pag nahabol ka, paligiran ka talaga. So that's another lesson learned. No? We have to install ang dami namang mga outboard motors dyan na powerful eh.
Yeah, I'll talk about that
Siguro
also. Yeah.
siguro bawasan nila konti yung pork barrel para makabili tayo ng
Ayan
outboard.
na. Sabi ko nga hindi lang si Ronald Llamas ang natin dito. Thanks, Justice. Gusto natin mga ganun eh. Medyo bawasan eh. Medyo nadagdag bawas yung nabawas yung ating West Philippine Sea budget. No, but Justice, I want to ask you a bit again, from what you understand and to the degree that we can share. Kasi ang understanding ko rin dito is medyo magkaroon din ng coordination problem. Now, I don't want to take sides. Obviously, there are all these marites about some cabinet members not doing well getting along with another cabinet member, but what is your advice to get around it if it's true? Kasi ako naman, on a more sanguine note, naintindihan ko na medyo nahihirapan yung interagency coordination dahil of course 6 years ng digong, dami mga atat dyan, dami mga galit dyan. Many people are trying to prove their patriotic credentials. Yung iba dati tahimik, ngayon medyo maingay na sa West Philippine Sea. And then, we're also in uncharted waters here, no? So in a way, I want to give some room for error dito sa interagency coordination. Ikaw, anong take mo dito, Justice? Kayo po, anong take nyo dito sa issue ng interagency coordination, including on communications, not only in terms of mission coordination?
Well, I think that happens in government. Sometimes you are not in sync with the other agencies. So, and something like this happens. So you have to learn the lessons. No? And the way I look at it, number one is we must use fast boats. Talagang mabilis. Kasi that's really a race. No? Second, I didn't think of it that we have to carry bladed weapons. Linabas nila bladed weapons eh. Because there's an instruction from the superiors of these people, do not use firearms. Talagang strict yan, kaya hindi sila gumamit eh. But we did not think that the Chinese would use bladed weapons. Naglabas sila. So mabuti nobody was seriously wounded except for that guy who lost his thumb. So I think next time we carry, kasi alam mo, pag may pickaxe sila, may machete sila, atras ka. Hindi ka naman harap eh. So, but if both sides may machete, stand off. And that's what we want, just a standoff.
Exactly, to create some sort of parity, no? Sige, mag-Mexican standoff kayo dyan, pero walang babarel or di ba? Mag-cowboy moves lang kayo dyan. Justice, I wanna the reason I also ask is because you served in the Ramos administration, right? You were his chief legal advisor, if I'm not mistaken. What was your experience back then, to the degree that you can share, yung nangyari nung Mischief Reef, yung Panganiban Reef? How did you address yung interagency communications and coordination ng time na yan?
Well, we didn't have a problem on interagency communication because FVR was very strict that you have to coordinate with everybody, complete staff work, no CSW. But our problem then was we had nothing. We suddenly China seized Mischief Reef, and we just kick out the Americans at the time. So when we kick out the Americans, the Chinese move in, and China was not yet had not ratified yet UNCLOS, so we couldn't even sue China, and we did not have the military might to take them out or to force them out of Mischief Reef. So ang ginawa natin, we just called the media to go there to take to ride on a Philippine Navy boat, and the boat conked out on the way to Mischief Reef.
Yeah,
So,
I heard that.
So there was our problem then was there's no problem of coordination. Our problem was we had no ally at the time. We just kick out the Americans.
So the problem was not coordination. The problem was walang-wala in terms of the ability to defend yourself and all. So is there?
It was really, suddenly, China just seized your maritime zone and you cannot do anything. I mean, it's something that was jarring to the mind that somebody just took over your backyard and you cannot do anything. You cannot even call the police because there's no policeman in the high seas.
Yeah, exactly. And Justice, is there where your realism comes from? Because my understanding of you is you're very realist in terms of your understanding, and I mean it in a very sympathetic way, in a sense that you see the value of our alliance with the United States because you had the traumatic experience when the US is not around, when they left our bases, immediately the Chinese move in. The reason this is important, Justice, is because we're hearing from some friends, a lot of them well-meaning, well-intentioned folks, but also some, let's say, politically motivated people are saying, ang problema kasi dito is yung alyansa natin sa Amerika. So if we get rid of that alliance, then China will be nice and good to us. Obviously, they're ignoring the entire experience of Vietnam, and they don't seem to research about what happened to Indonesia and Malaysia. But what do you have to tell to these people from your experience in 1994, 1995, when you are left alone to China's whims? How do they treat you? Are they nice to us when the Americans are not around? Because American bases were closed during that time.
Yeah. When we kicked out the Americans in 1992, 1993, 2 years later, 1995, they took over Mischief Reef, and there was nothing we could do. The Americans were not around. We kicked them out. So we had no one to turn to. So we just brought the media there, and it was pathetic because even the ship that we took them with just conked out. So, and then we did not learn our lesson because we still did not prepare because we thought that would be the end of it. But China, you look at the 9-dash line, they want to secure the 9-dash line, and their next target was Scarborough Shoal. And they took over Scarborough Shoal, and that's the only time we woke up that the China will continue. And we did not have the military might to retake Scarborough Shoal. So we did not send our soldiers there or our Marines. We sent our lawyers to The Hague. So, but that was the right thing to do because there was no way we could evict the Chinese also in Scarborough Shoal. We didn't have we were outnumbered in terms of Coast Guard vessels, Navy vessels. So we brought them to a forum where there was a level playing field where warships and warplanes do not count. No? And that's why we won. And that's the same strategy that we should adopt today. We should bring them to court again, find a way where we bring the dispute to a forum where warships and warplanes do not count, because if we fight them in the high seas, in the sea, in the West Philippine Sea, in the rocks and in the shoals, we cannot win because they have bigger ships. They have you have the largest naval fleet in the world, the largest coast guard, and so on. So that's why I'm recommending one. We we challenge them that to submit the territorial dispute to arbitration. I mean, officially now. And then we know that China will not accept it because they know they will lose. So, but at least that's so we can tell the world that we are following the UN Charter to settle all disputes by peaceful means. No, and second, let's accept the invitation of Vietnam and Malaysia to submit the extended continental shelf overlap to voluntary arbitration and invite China. But China will again refuse because they know they will lose. But at least we'll come out with a ruling, because if the three countries will agree to submit it to arbitration, there will be an award. And that's on top of the July 2016 award. And the world will support that because that's the product of a rule of law. And then we can also we have to change the nature of our presence in Ayunging Shoal, because if we continue to resupply, they will also continue to block us. So what we will do is change our presence from military to civilian, because if it's civilian, UNCLOS will have an UNCLOS tribunal will have jurisdiction. So we in the meantime we maintain the ship there, but announce to the world that we will put up a lighthouse, Coast Guard substation, and a Marine Research Center to be operated by UP. And when we bring our materials to construct that lighthouse, they will stop us. And when they stop us, we go to an UNCLOS tribunal and get another award on top of the existing awards. And the more the world will support us, because the world will like to follow the rule of law. So,
more
in other words,
lawfare. So essentially, lawfare
yeah,
is your way forward.
we use lawfare, but at the same time, we ask the U.S. and our like-minded countries to continue to patrol the West Philippine Sea, because then if they patrol, they always tell China, this is not your territory. This is a part of the EEZ of the Philippines. So, but we have stopped using the lawfare now. We should go back to lawfare because we cannot lose in lawfare.
Justice, what happened? Di ba ang DOJ for months has been saying that they're preparing something, especially dun sa environmental damage. Ano hanash lang ba yan? Or your understanding is that the foundations of the legal case is being built as we speak?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do if we file an environmental case is to come out with a marine scientific assessment to establish that the corals were destroyed not by nature but by humans. And as of now, I have not seen that study yet. And we have to
So may kapos
establish
pa.
more or less the date and show that the date of the destruction, the estimated date of the destruction, coincided with the presence of the maritime militia of the Chinese vessels there. So it requires a lot of study, and my recommendation is if we don't have those kind of study, we better not file, because
dapat solid ka papasok.
Yeah. I mean, we have to have that.
Justice, speaking of our allies and friends, I'll go back to the MDT again shortly, but I mean, obviously, I'm glad that you clarified na yung mga nagsasabi na, hindi, pag wala ng mga US, everything will be fine and dandy. They seem to be completely oblivious to history, or probably intentionally oblivious. I mean, we know that the Chinese moved on the paracels as soon as the Indochina Wars, right, really weakened South Vietnam, which collapsed eventually. They moved on Vietnam, unified Vietnam in Johnson's South Reef when the Soviet Union withdrew their support from them. So we know historically, whenever the smaller neighbors don't have a superpower backing, that's where China moves in. So they're extremely, extremely sensitive to balance of forces. And I think that's where the relevance of the MDT comes in. But before I go to the MDT issue more, I want to ask you also on the environmental issue. There are suggestions that maybe we can work with the US Geological Survey or with scientists from the US dun sa making sure now we have a proper canvassing of the damages that China has done, and then idikit natin ito dun sa 26 na arbitration case.
Well, we should have two studies, one to be made by an independent body, not related to the Philippines or the Americans, because they will always say this is part of the American plan. So that's what we did in the arbitration of The Hague. And then we can have also an assessment done by our UP marine scientists, so that we'll have two. No?
Exactly. So you have essentially a kind of a independent study na beyond assault, although obviously China will always question anything that doesn't go its way, di ba? Yeah. Never naman sila na natalo eh. Either nanalo sila or dinayaan sila. Medyo parang mga trapo din sa Pilipinas. Never matatalo mga yan. But just going back to the MDT, the reason I want to push on this is, interestingly, I don't know if I forwarded this to you or if you have seen it. So last year, the Indo-Pacific Command released a declassified paper based on the legal analysis of some of their personnel, kung saan ang suggestion nila is yung armed attack as the threshold for the MDT. Medyo kailangan i-expound pa yan to cover some of the new realities on the ground. So ang sinabi nila is MDT should also apply to, quote, illegal use of force which is not limited by law to a kinetic attack, i.e. the use of munitions, but could also include non-kinetic attacks that result in death, injury, damage, or destruction of persons or objects. Obviously, if you look at this, again, this is just recommendatory, hindi ito final position ng US government, but this was the kind of a recommendation paper dun sa analysis ng Indo-PACOM. Based on that definition, losing a thumb, you know, could invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty, or do you think this is too low a threshold? Is there a midpoint between that, or do you think it's even necessary for the US to make the MDT more applicable to very aggressive, potentially fatal gray zone attack? And I mean it in a more deterrent sense, because I think people who don't know what we're talking about says, oh, sorry, Richard, gusto mo invoke MDT para magyera ng China at America ngayon? No, I'm just saying what is done is done. Unfortunately, we have to probably expel the Chinese ambassador. We can do a lot of other things or file illegal warfare. But for future, para hindi pa mag-escalate ito lalo, maybe the US has to be a little bit clear about the parameters of the MDT or the guidelines of the activation MDT, in a sense that hindi lang siya hanggang, i.e. usage of munitions. Pwede rin siguro, I don't know, if a machete cuts off a Filipino serviceman's head, shouldn't that activate an MDT in your opinion? I mean, this is quite tricky, isn't it?
Well, actually, the MDT has a consultative mechanism. We can meet with our American allies to consult on this issue. How do we treat this gray zone operations of China? So, but the UN Charter says there must be an armed attack for you to exercise self-defense. Okay, so we should explain the meaning of armed attack, that with the use of firearms, and then with the use of lasers, which can really also permanently blind you, because they use lasers also. And also, if it's a water cannon, if it's with a certain pressure, it can hurt you, if it can kill you if it hits your chest. So we can define those definitions as long as we say that this constitutes armed attack, the use of laser that permanently blinds, because there is a convention on the use of lasers, and China and the US and we are signatories to that, declaring it as a weapon against humanity. The use of the weapon is a crime against humanity. It's a war crime. If you use lasers that permanently blind. So that one is accepted already under international law. It's a weapon because it's in fact prohibited, just like nuclear weapons are prohibited. So we can redefine that. Lasers, water cannon that with a certain pressure. We can slowly define all of this, and then announce it to the world, and China would take notice that if they do that, then they're crossing the line.
Yun nga Justice, ako kasi I see the dilemma. If you bring the threshold too low, you may unnecessarily escalate the situation. At the same time, if the threshold is too high, kaya nga Goldilocks ang hinahanap natin dito, di ba? If the threshold naman is too high, yan ang ina-exploit ng China eh. Anything short of usage of munitions, parang green light na sa kanila yun. When in fact, parang, kasi Justice, I'm hearing a lot of people on different platforms are saying, ano bang hinintay natin, may mamatay pa? Ano ba yun? Parang i-gray zone nila. First, they'll cut off our fingers. Then they'll cut off our hand. And then they'll cut off, ganun ba yan? Like parang hinintay ba natin step by step until may mamatay?
Well,
how do you deter China making it even worse than cutting off the thumb?
Yeah. Well, tama yung sinabi ng isang the former PACOM commander. He said, if the water cannon results in a death. So then we define it as anything that results in a death. No? So but we have to remember that there is that principle of proportionality. If they use a water cannon, we can use a water cannon also. In other words, we cannot fire back with the cannons if they are of let's say automatic machine guns, automatic weapons, firearms. If they're only using water cannon, it has to be proportional.
Justice, do you see a situation of, I don't know, mutual active defense kung saan hindi naman yung gagamitin ng mga Amerikano munitions, but let's say, dalawa tayo ng mga Amerikano, may mga machete tayo at water guns. Pag andun yung mga Chino, sige, I mean, can we do that? I mean, both of us with the Americans having those machetes and water guns. So, walang sasalita, walang magbabarel, pero pwede na anything else, bardagulan. Can we have a mutual bardagulan together with our allies? Is that a possibility?
Well, in India they have that rule. Nobody will bring firearms in the border, in the line of actual control. But we don't have that here. But we have to bear in mind that there is that rule of proportionality. No, even if they fire a rifle at us, we cannot return fire with a missile. And it has to be proportional.
Yeah, exactly. Yun nga, I mean, I know this is sounding ridiculous. Kasi kaya nga last time, sabi ko, dali na natin yung mga badyaw at moro natin kapatid para may katapat tong mga to. Justice, I want to go back to the technicalities a little bit, and then I want to go to Justice, to Senator De Lima. Bukas kasi kausapin ko si Admiral Ong na lang. So I don't want to push you too much on the drones and technicality issue, but do you think the Americans also could be helpful if, together with our other friends and allies, they give us all of these inflatable fast boats? Kasi hindi naman mahal yan eh. Tsaka may ang dami nilang nire-retire mga littoral combat ships. Pwede naman nila ibigay sa atin eh. So I don't know what's holding them back. Hindi ba medyo kailangan na natin yan? I mean, they're giving also the weapons to Ukraine and Israel.
Well, we have ribs. We have these rigid hull inflatable boats. Ang problema natin, we use the standard engine, but we can buy a powerful engine in Quiapo. It's being sold there. In the yacht club, we can change the outboard with a powerful engine, and you can leave everybody behind. No, so I think we should just ask some of our congressmen to give up their pork barrel for a time,
or
so we can have. We can buy powerful engines.
Or, I mean, my suggestion was gamitin natin yung chopper ni ex-Bamban Mayor. May submarine team si Chavit Singson, di ba? Si Chavit Singson, di ba may submarine daw yun? I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of our friends who can lend us some of their gadgets and all of that. But yeah, I mean, yun nga, na-weirdoan ako now with all of that AFP modernization and billions going to all of these acquisitions of weapon systems, etc. Parang kulang pa rin tayo sa mga boats and all of that. But Justice, maybe isn't that probably also their own kind of a gray zone, in a sense that unti-unti lang natin inaakyat yung mga gamit natin. Parang labas tayong kawawa parati, di ba? Kasi, di ba, dati yung parang barko na parang kawawa, na parang bahay kubo lang, tapos biglang medyo may cover na sa water cannon. Ngayon naman, I mean, don't you think they're also like, iniisa-isa lang nila in-escalates para may room for maneuver sila? So parang there's a calibrated escalation ladder.
Well,
Hindi kaya baka ganun yung strategy?
no, I don't think so. Uh, Actually, kampante tayo na this is just like another routine resupply. Uh, we will not use firearms, they will not use firearms, so we will just continue, no? Pabilisan lang. Kaya lang naglabas sila ng bladed weapons at saka pinaligiran tayo. That was the new element that they introduced, and bigla na lang na we were overwhelmed because of that, no? So we did not anticipate that. That's the shortcoming that we made, no? We did not anticipate that they would use bladed weapons.
So what you're saying, Justice, is that these were an operational failure, but not an indictment of our entire strategy. That's what you're saying. Stick to the strategy,
Yes.
eye on the ball, refine na lang, okay lang yan.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. We have equipment we can buy, no? Because we did not probably thought that it will be another run. They cannot stop us because we'll just continue. But they suddenly had bladed weapons, no?
Just a very serious question. Do you think jet ski will help? I mean that's what are jet skis faster than those boats? I mean, is that one of
Well, it will help, but you can only carry one or two persons. Your supplies will be a problem. Actually, we can also airdrop by plane or helicopter.
exactly,
But of
diba?
course, the problem there is if you rotate the personnel, you have to bring the people there and get the old people out, no? So you
Yun lang,
really need to
oo.
put them in a boat.
Uh, uh, Last point on this before we go to Senator De Lima. Justice, is it I don't know, I don't want to be overly optimistic or romanticize it, but a part of me feels hindi ba may pagkabuki siya ito? I mean, again, of course, may na-injured, that was horrible, etc. But in the end, we still did what we did, right? We brought construction materials and we kind of fixed it, right? I mean, we did what we needed to do. So in the end of the day, wala pa, nagtatantrum lang China, di ba? Parang they're just having a tantrum, but they
Yeah.
failed it. They didn't.
Actually, from what I understand, we have repaired it. It can last for another 10 years.
It's a strategic failure for China. They may have some tactical, optical success, or maging mukhang kawawa tayo. But at the end of the day, we accomplish our strategic objectives here. No, kaya actually I really appreciate it, Justice, because when I talk to you, I feel much more reassured. Because a part of me is also, of course, looking at the optics, looking at tactical failures, ano mga kailan gawin, and then online, there are all these people attacking us saying, warmonger daw tayo, naghanap tayo ng gulo. Of course, hindi yata nag-Google lang ibig sabihin ng deterrence ng mga to. Now, Justice, let's transition a little bit to domestic politics.
Wait, Richard, just one more thing.
Yeah, please go ahead. More than one thing. Go ahead.
Because the Chinese now, they have shown that they are willing to board our resupply ships. The next time they might board Sierra Madre. It's very possible. So we have to make a decision what to do with that, because they might board and there might be in terms of number they might be more numerical. They may have more people there. So we will have to really use whatever defense measures we can take.
Yeah, I was also asked that. I was asked that this could be the dress rehearsal, or at the very least, a psychological and operational precedence, di ba?
Yeah, they could ramp this up. Yeah, because the next escalation here is to board the Sierra Madre, and we have to be prepared for that.
Grabe, para ito palang Mad Max. Just have you watched Mad Max? Yung mga apocalyptic na doon.
The old boats.
Fury to Fury na to. Furia.
you know, Richard, they might board it, but they may not be carrying firearms. They might
Yeah.
carry only bladed
Machete.
weapons.
Yeah.
So we
Oh
should
my
be
gosh.
prepared to have tear
Yeah.
gas or stun guns, so that we can stop them from afar. No, maybe stun guns would be better because that's not a firearm. So we have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, yun nga medyo Mad Max ang naisip ko with all the trusted ship and like grabe na to. No, baka padala natin yung PNP, magaling sila mag-water cannon ng tao eh. Or baka sila Kibuloy, magaling din sila mag-water cannon ng police. I mean, I don't think we'll run out of talents. But you're right, Justice. If there's one thing that's worrying me is baka this is the precedence and dress rehearsal and yun lang medyo alanganin. I mean, you can imagine if
Yeah,
this situation, maliit yung
because
police. Yeah.
remember, Richard, we have said that if they attack us with bladed weapons, it's not armed attack. So if they attack, take over BRP Sierra Madre with bladed weapons, it will not be an armed attack. So we have to be prepared for that.
Kaya nga, Justice, I think that's where mahalaga na i-clarify ng US na any fatal, right, action or operation will activate the MDT. So, if there's a very high probability na may mamamatay dyan, kasi this is a confined space, Mad Max area, water world, sabi nung iba, it's very likely someone is gonna get slashed or killed, right? So, you have to create some sort of deterrence so that the Chinese will not do it in terms of forcible overtake, no. So I don't know, you're right, that's one thing that really worries me about this.
Or
But
or
yeah,
we can make an announcement that if they board the BRP Sierra Madre, the soldiers there are instructed to use their firearms because it's like
yeah,
boarding, it's like barging into your house already. So
yeah,
that then
yeah,
so
and we
they
have
will be forced to
there, right?
carry firearms also. It will be an armed attack.
Yeah, and we have military personnel there, right, who have the duty
Yeah.
to use firearms to defend Philippine territory, right? So so ang maging guideline dyan is gumamit kayong barel if there is a forcible
Yes,
attempt
there
to
should.
occupy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think the standing order now is not to use firearms. They should change that. That if it's the BRP Sierra Madre itself that's boarded,
That's a good
they
point.
can use firearms.
Yeah, yun yung, and we also openly say to China, I mean, openly
Yeah,
say,
we should.
no,
Yeah, we should announce it.
yeah, we should announce it exactly. And then the US also has to make it clear na this will activate the MDT, di ba? Kasi
Yeah,
military person lang pinag-usapan natin dito eh, Justice. That's very good point.
yeah.
Actually, thank you for
So
bringing that
if
out.
we,
Yeah.
yeah, if we announce it, China will not send their people there without firearms because they have no chance. So they will have to use firearms. It will become an armed attack.
That's a very important. Thank you sa hinabol mo dyan. So tomorrow I'll also ask Admiral Ong also about the operational preparations that we could do. Oo nga, medyo Mad Max Water World nang naisip ko. I mean, this is crazy stuff, right? Do you think, Justice, this was inevitable that at some point this was gonna come? This day was gonna come na talagang we have to seriously worry about possibility of itong Mad Max showdown over the Panatag Shoal?
Yeah,
Ayungin pala.
I think. Yeah, because if they want to escalate it, that is the next escalation.
Logical next step na, no? Logical next step. Justice, let's transition a little bit to domestic affairs. Eto si so one person who shouldn't worry about being confined somewhere or be besieged anymore is former Senator De Lima. What is your reading of the resolution and final vindication of her case? Or at least, do you want to give a kind of a legal overview of what happened for people who didn't follow the legal niceties of what happened today?
Well, I have not read the resolution acquitting her. It's not
Yeah.
yet in any of the Viber groups, not even from the group of Lilia. But I was still in the Supreme Court when we decided her case, and the majority dismissed her appeal, but I dissented. I said that the case against her, the charges, should be dismissed because one, in a charge of conspiracy to sell drugs, illegal drugs or shabu, it's important that the corpus delicti should be there, and they did not there was no allegation, there was no claim that 1 kilo or 2 kilos of shabu. I mean, they said there was they sold shabu, but that the rule is, and this has been repeatedly upheld by the Supreme Court, the corpus delicti, the crime itself, because what is the crime there is the possession or sale of the illegal drug. You cannot possess it because that's illegal. They have to show that it was taken, it was seized, and that has to be examined by the forensic expert to say that it is really shabu, because it could be, let's say, just a sugar. No, so the that's why I dissented. I said, how come you're charging
Yeah.
these people with illegal conspiracy to sell drugs, but where is the drug? Where is the shabu? Nobody has presented it, and there was no forensic examination. So I was trying to look at to find out if the resolution was available already, but it's not yet available as of now. I mean,
Yeah,
as the latest I checked this afternoon.
right. So maybe I'll get back to you na lang next time, Justice, on the jurisprudence and all of that. Now, on a personal and political level, what is your understanding of this? I mean, to what degree is this because Duterte is no longer the president? To what degree is this because Marcos is the president? To what degree is this, just, the wheels of justice, albeit very belatedly, finally grinding towards, an element of resolution? What's going on here?
Well, of course, the number of things, Duterte is no longer the president, no? And uh, the DOJ is no longer working to persecute Laila, no? The Senator de Lima. So at least there is now there was a level playing field already. I mean, before the odds were stacked against her, but now it's a level playing field, and of course, if it's a level playing field, she would be acquitted because the body of the crime is not there. It's like you accuse somebody of murder, but you cannot produce the body of the
Right.
person who was murdered. So in the crime of murder, you must produce the body. They call it the corpus delicti. That's the proof of the death. So you have to prove that there was really shabu, and that has to be examined by the chemist that it's really shabu.
Right. So hindi lang proof of life sa mahalaga sa mundo, proof of death din kasama diyan, 'di ba? Unfortunately, well, we have a lot of proof of death when it comes to Duterte's drug war. Justice, do you think there's also room, kasi ang understanding ko dito is hindi lang sapat na ma-vindicate legally si Senator De Lima, her persecutors also have to be held accountable. If there were people who were bastardizing the judicial system, if there were people who were actively engaged in malicious and systematically libelous kind of activities that contributed to the perpetuation of that ridiculous and preposterous case, which is clear to everyone else except some of our friends on the other side, don't you think, Justice, that she should also go after her perpetrators, those who tormented
Well,
her?
yeah, she said that they're studying that already to file criminal cases against those who brought this obviously false charges against her. No.
And Justice, are you feeling good about the direction of things on in general in terms of the legal process? Kasi ang contention ni dito is once Duterte was out, the judicial system was able to grind towards something more positive. I mean, what is your understanding of the Philippine justice system? I mean, I never ask you this question, Justice, but a lot of us social scientists, when we look at the rise of Duterte and his penal populism, a lot of that had to do with the shortcomings and deficits, whether perceived or real, when it comes to the Philippine judicial system. Now, this is not to cast aspersions on your great service to the country, but what is your understanding of anong mga reformang kailangan natin sa justice system natin, in addition to also making sure that there's cooperation with ICC if ever warrants of arrest come in, and also making sure that accountability is exacted on other fronts?
Richard, in South Korea, the prosecution service is very powerful because they are not under the president. They even charge the president. And they
At naging
succeeded several
president yung
times.
isa. At naging
Yeah.
president yung isang prosecutor.
Yeah.
Diba?
Yeah. So, but here, the prosecution is under the control of the president. So that's something we can mull over when we have when we review our constitution, if there is a charter change, whether we can follow that kind of example. No, actually, we have something like that. We gave the ombudsman independent powers, but the problem is the ombudsman is appointed by the president. So,
Too
and
much
we have this
executive
utang na
prerogative.
loob, no? That's a trait.
Right. So too much executive prerogative,
So,
actually.
yeah, so we have to maybe we can have three a panel of ombudsman, three persons, one appointed by the president, one appointed by the Congress, and the third appointed by the Supreme Court. At least, so not one branch of government, one department of government will have a control or will have a bigger say, no? So we have to look at these things because it hasn't been working the way we want it to work.
I'm glad I asked this question. Oh, nga, no, you're right. You have to reduce the executive prerogative so that you remove either direct politicization or cloud of politicization. Like, for instance, in the US, diba? Yung idea na the Trump case is a kind of a Biden witch hunt and all of that, diba? I mean, you want to make sure, like, you know, Biden was making sure that DOJ keeps a healthy distance from Trump cases as much as possible, right? So we can see that in our information environment, mahalaga talaga na may 1 degree, if not 5 degrees or 6 degrees of separation from the political leaders vis-a-vis the prosecutors or anyone involved, especially in high-profile cases. No, Justice, last point. I want to ask this again. As usual, I go back to your fellow Dabaeños. Sorry for doing this, but sikat kasi sila eh. Justice, so now Sara Duterte has resigned. She's no longer in the cabinet. Siyempre sabi ng iba, yay! Actually, even our supporters are saying yay kasi boiling frog siya eh. Malapit na sila maluto if they keep on staying there, di ba? Now, there are people are saying she should be the leader of the opposition right now. You, as someone who was part of the One Sambayan, who tried so hard to put the fractious opposition together, it was a very heroic effort, I would say. What do you say about the possibility that you may have multiple opposition groups in the coming elections, right? The Duterte opposition with Sara potentially as the helm, if not the father together, and then of course the traditional opposition. First on the Duterte's, and then can we talk about what you also think the actual, real, genuine opposition should do in the upcoming elections?
Well, I don't think Sara will become the leader of the opposition because she's not part of the opposition. She was part of the unity team. They just broke up, but the opposition is those opposed to both of them. No, in the last election, but the opposition is very weak because obviously only one made it to the Senate, and the president, vice president lost. So the opposition at this time is weak. But the leader of the opposition cannot be Sara Duterte because she's part of the ruling class.
Right, part of the ruling class na hindi kasama sa cabinet anymore. I mean, I could imagine how weird the cabinet meetings were, di ba? I mean, but we discussed that na hindi sila nag-meet yung mga national security pag andun si Sara. So good for her also not to be in that awkward and out of place situation. Justice, what do you think the actual genuine opposition should do in this election? Because some people are saying maybe there should be some informal tactical alliance with the admin to make sure the Dutertes will be sidelined for good so that they cannot escape accountability, especially an ICC issue, among other things. Because from what we understand, not only Baste, baka Baste and Polong, both of them may run for Senate. And then Sara, this is the craziest idea. I've been hearing it for past 4 or 5 months, but now I'm taking it more serious. She might even run for congresswoman to have her own time for Tambaluslos. I'm sorry, to have her own time with the leadership and all of that. I mean, I mean, you're from Davao. Maybe you know these people better than me. I mean, this is crazy world. I mean, what anong dapat gawin ng opposition? Or should we, or maybe you think Justice better we'll just get our popcorns and have our podcast and enjoy the ride. I mean, what do you think we should?
One, I don't think Sarah will be accepted as the leader of the opposition. I mean, of the genuine opposition. Uh, I don't think she will run for Congress. She will stay as vice president because that's just one heartbeat away from the presidency. Uh, so there will be probably three slates. One slate by uh, the slate of the president, the other one the slate of the vice president, and another slate by the genuine opposition. We don't know, of course, if the opposition can field 12 candidates. Might be difficult, but as of now, that's the way I see it.
And Justice, what gives you hope about the direction of Philippine democracy and all? Because of course, I don't know about you, but there are a lot of people who have been very depressed about essentially Philippine politics for the past decade or so. A lot of people switched off. There have been a lot of criticism that the pink movement was not sustained over time. If you look at the Okta survey, we interviewed Professor Ranjit also early this year. More than 45% of the voters are either totally non-partisan, meaning they don't care about any political party, or they've totally switched off from politics. So it's no longer about whether you're pro Duterte or pro Marcos or pro Aquino. It's about those who care about politics, and almost half of the population which has given up on politics or anything like that. How do we bring these people back and make them care for the country? I mean, obviously, I can think about West Philippine Sea as a way, in the sense that ayaw natin ng Team China ulit sa Malacanang, di ba? But what else? How else do you think we can motivate people to come back and get involved in politics and hopefully vote wisely?
Well, I think we have to look at certain institutions. First, the church. Uh, they have to re-educate the people because they are the counter. Remember, we have lost the media, the ABS-CBN, which was acted as a fiscalizer. So there's no fiscalizer in media now. So we have to find a replacement for that, and the only institution that I see is the church. No? That and they have the pulpit; they can explain the issues to the people. Uh, the, uh, the remnants of the opposition, the Liberal Party, I think they're too weak right now, and they're fighting for their life. You have only one in the Senate, and
Yeah.
even Lenny Robredo is planning to run for mayor. So the Senate slate will practically be maybe a few people only. So, so what I see now is the burden will fall on the church, and it's a question of whether the church will step in. No? There are some priests who are willing to step in, but I mean the hierarchy might not want to step in.
Yeah, understandably. Although of course we have a progressive pope, right? I mean, Pope Francis, this seems to be someone who he seems to be someone really influenced by, a liberation theology, or at least his Argentinian Latin American roots and his younger years. I mean, and then you have people like Bishop David, right? Who also was very, very critical of Duterte back in the day and stood up to the abuses of the Dutertes. But I mean, again, I don't want to be too pessimistic about this, but we have seen over the past decades, right, that it's not the Catholic Church which is as dominant in our politics. It's really the more evangelical born again groups, right, who are exercising tremendous amount of influence on our politics because of their block voting. Wala naman block voting in Catholic churches. So
yes.
So how do you see that? Yeah.
Well, the block voting is really the Iglesia and the Kibuloy type of religious groups, no? But that's been there all the time, and the what we can what we want the institution that can really step in is the church, but I have my doubts whether it will step in. I mean, the hierarchy will step in. So what do we do? it's something that I really
What
also
is
do
to be
not
done,
know.
as the Russians would say it? What is to be done? Hindi si Stalin, si Herzan yung nauna dyan. So makamasabi na komunista tayo, maretag
Well,
tayo. What is to be done?
well, there seems to be a shift in the sentiment of people worldwide. In the U.S., they have the same problem. I mean, uh, the traditional values are gone, or have waned already. So I really don't know how to revive that.
Thank you, Justice Carpio. It looks like domestic politics is a little bit more depressing nowadays. Sige, doon na lang muna tayo sa West Philippine Sea. Balikan natin yung inflatable boats and jet ski and all of that. I'm sure we'll have more updates in coming days.
Yes,
Thank you so much, Justice.
Yeah, I think that's more. We can see the light at the end of the
Yeah,
tunnel.
exactly. Yeah. I could see yung facial expression mo, medyo iba na kagad. Sabi ko, I think this is medyo, rabbit hole of depression to. But, sige, si Ronald na lang kulitin ko sa mga yan kasi yun, medyo makulit siya mag-isip eh. So,
see Ronald. He thinks about that every day, so he can give you
obsession,
answers.
yeah. Syempre showbiz yan eh. Ikaw naman, Justice, thank you so much for your views on the West Philippines. Ako naman, for me, really what stood out was eto nga, kung maging dress rehearsal ito for kind of a Mad Max water world takeover of Ayunging Shoal. So dapat maghanda talaga yung mga tao natin.
Yes, yeah.
Madre, and
You're right.
openly say,
We have to prepare. We have to prepare
if you're
for
gonna
that.
take over, we're gonna shoot you down. Hindi na ito machete at kung fu, no? We're gonna shoot you down, and that will eventually activate the Mutual Defense Treaty. Thank you so much, Justice Carpio, for that very good mixture of sobriety and hopefulness, and then depressing na yung domestic politics. Hindi ko na napag-usapan. So medyo ano yan, medyo parang ano yan, yung anime na mga apat na emotions nandun lahat. So para tayong anime ngayon. Thank you so much, Justice Carpio. Mabuhay po kayo. Dami
Okay.
ko ulit dito sa intervention niyo. Hope we can trouble you again in the near future.
Yeah,
Magpahinga na kayo,
anytime. So
Justice.
thank you, Richard. Thank you for having me.
God bless. Talk to you soon.